There are levels to everything, and honestly, pursuing a doctoral degree may have been the most difficult thing that I've ever electively chosen. So, if you are thinking about doing the same, I've got some tips now that I'm on the other side of it. Let's talk about it. Welcome, everyone, to Outsider Information. I am your host, Brandon, and your strategic partner here with OIAS. As always, if anything resonates, give a like, subscribe, and engage, not just here, but social media. Check out the website. All of it's a really good time. Drink of the episode is a jasmine green tea. If you have had a tea like this before, it is floral, it's fragrant, but it is not at the peak of its powers. If you would like a pure jasmine tea, you might just have to get the jasmine bulbs yourself and render the tea yourself. It is very delicate. It still has that floral note, but you don't get the bitterness is the wrong word, but you don't get the flavor of the green tea. You just get a pure, light, floral, delectable jasmine tea. So, highly recommend. Keep that on the back burner. Tea propaganda will never leave this show. Story time. We talked at the intro about pursuing your doctoral degree, if that is something that you would want to do. I have finished it. I am a little over a year out from having finished it, and I've had time to reflect. There are definitely things that I would do different. But before all that, it was never the plan. And we think about a whole lot of things throughout our daily life, right? Things, oh, it'd be interesting if I did that. That'd be cool, but it's never really something that you think about. The doctoral degree was never something that I legitimately thought about until I'd finished my master's. And honestly, for pretty good reason. I was a terrible student in high school and my undergrad in college. And not terrible in the sense that I didn't show up to class. It was just the material didn't really resonate with me. It was just checking a box. And I don't do well with that, right? You get through it, you do it, but you're not really putting a whole lot of effort into it. And my grades certainly reflected that. But you also get some of the coded language. I don't know if this was, high school wise, it was a 98% white school. So one of a few black kids or any kid of color in there. You hear certain things. I remember distinctly a teacher telling me that they didn't know if I would be successful after graduation just because they just didn't see it. Which, when you think about it, it's a really terrible thing to say to a kid who hasn't really done it. It's a terrible thing to say to a kid in general. But for those who didn't believe in what ultimately was, there were also just as many that did, and you remember those along the way because in an odd sense, you're trying your best not to make what they thought you could be. You try your best not to mess that up. I probably phrased that poorly, but I find motivation in slights, but I find just as much motivation in validating somebody's initial assumption, because who doesn't like to be right? And somebody gets to say, I knew that that was going to happen long before it happened. So to those that did buy in and that always thought that there would be something bigger, I appreciate it. To those who didn't, you can pound sand, and I'm giving you the middle finger under this camera. That shit matters. Anyway, beyond that, again, it was not the plan. And now that I have it, you got to do something with it. And in the midst of the entire process, it would have been really good to have the mindset that I currently have now when I was pursuing the degree, because there is a lot that you take away from the entire process, and now having been removed from it all, just kind of how the world looks at everything. So, why the doctorate? It was the natural next progression for me. I was coaching at the time, and I knew that I didn't want to coach forever. Like, I had made that declaration very long before I had the job that I had at that moment at the college, and the doctoral degree was going to be the thing that was going to get me out of it. So it was, in essence, a career shift is why I wanted to pursue the degree. Again, for me, age, I was 27, 28. I'm 31 right now, almost 32. You go through a lot of changing in your 20s, and knowing what I didn't want to do almost made it easier to pursue this degree, because I knew that at the age that I was going to have it, it was going to open up things really for the next 30 or 40 years. And that, to me, keeping options, giving me options, that was important to me. And what I was going to do with it was going to be built while I was acquiring it. The good news is once you have it, it can't be taken from you. that was also part of the rationale. It's like, once I do this, I never have to go back to school again. There's not going to be any thought of, well, I could do this in my 40s, early 50s, and this degree would help. Like, no, I have it. I'm done. I got to pay the student loans off for the rest of my life, but I have it, and it can't be taken. And anything I do with it now is going to be as a result of what I have already done. So that was good, knowing that situation as well. It expands your world and it limits it simultaneously. You are part of an exclusive group of people who have completed, who have defended, who have the title by their name. But it's a really small demographic too when you think about the people who do it, and it's not always weighted or measured equally. And we'll get more into that. But again, it is a nice thing to have. I did get mine at Drexel University, and I have been very vocal about how I think Drexel probably, won't say failed, but talking to other alums and also just kind of seeing the landscape, I think this is pretty common with a lot of academic institutions. They're not necessarily setting you up for success once you have the document. While you're in their bubble, they're going to make sure you get through it. But once you're out, a lot of things really do fall back on you. Saying all those things, I would 100% do it again. Know that I am approaching this from the framework of I wanted it, I pursued it, I completed it, and if I was asked to do it all over again, I would absolutely do it because I know exactly where I can go with it. And that is what I want to project here. All right? So let's dive in. The difference. We'll start with the difference, right? Two different types of doctoral degrees. You've got your Ed.D, you've got your PhD, and there's other aspects of this as well. But let's just focus on these two because this is where I was at, and this is what I was deciding between. Your Ed.D is about application, and that's what most professional doctorates are. They've got PharmDs, PsyDs. You are taking that expertise and you are applying it directly. Your PhD is going to be about research. And the mistake that I made in the beginning was thinking that one was better than the other, right? I had never heard of an Ed.D. I knew my wife had a PharmD, but I had not heard of an Ed.D. in comparison to a PhD. I thought that a PhD was really the only way that you could legitimately have a doctoral degree outside of being in the medical field. That is not accurate. And had I followed that train of thought, I would not have ended up staying at Drexel, which honestly was the best choice for my academic career. So knowing the differences helped. The time constraints also matter here. When you are doing an Ed.D, you're looking at about 3 to 5 years. Drexel's program was either a 3-year track or a 5-year track, depending on how you want to do it. PhDs, as I've seen them in most institutions, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. Again, you are immersing yourself into research. You're doing that to specifically continue research, whereas with your Ed.D, you're trying to get something created and then apply it to a specific situation, education, business, organizations, however you want to do it. Program fit and what you ultimately want to do matter, and that's going to go back to the Ed.D versus the PhD or any form of the doctorate. Drexel was a great fit for me because I had just done my master's there. I was familiar with it. I knew the professors. There was going to be some overlap. It was also online, which allowed me to work full-time while pursuing a doctoral degree. Difficult if you have to do it, which most of us did. Not easy. But again, having that online format matters. And then ultimately what I wanted to do. I just knew at that point I didn't want to keep coaching. I didn't necessarily have this grand vision for my career. In a lot of ways I still don't. And that's not a problem. But being in the right environment is going to help get you closer to that thing that you want to do because they're going to support you and they're going to actually help gear the research towards something that is going to be impactful for you down the road. What is happening, though, between doctoral degrees is that they are intermixing, if that makes sense. So PhDs typically, again, they stuck to the research side, they stuck to academia. Ed.Ds kind of went elsewhere, more industry focused. As academia has shrunk a lot of the available positions, you're starting to see a lot more PhDs going towards industry out of research and finding pathways into other avenues. Ed.Ds, we were already there. You're starting to see more of them take the place in education, kind of shifting and shaping. they're really interchangeable at this point is kind of what I'm saying. So regardless of the one that you get, you're not pigeonholing yourself maybe like you were in the past. Regardless, you're going to have the title at the very end. And I think that's what really matters most, is once you put in the work, you have it. The distinction really only matters between doctoral communities. There is differences in application for PhD, Ed.D. Again, the timing, the type of research, how it's being applied, all those things do matter. But they matter more when you're talking specifically to people. When I just talk to anybody just out and about, I usually just say doctoral degree, or when they assume PhD, I just don't correct them, because at that point, you're getting into semantics. At the end of the day, you've got the title, and most people don't know that there is a difference between an Ed.D. and a PhD. There really isn't, but again, we're going to be circling that one for a while if I keep trying to parse it. The transition to doctoral writing certainly was one that took some time. Actually, I think I failed my first 2 classes. There was a exemption coming out of COVID that gave you a pass-fail designation, and if you were above a certain percentage that may not have been passing if grades were actually being tracked, you could use that one to essentially preserve yourself and move on to the next class. And man, am I happy that that happened, because you kind of you got to get yourself back in gear. For somebody who really enjoys writing and has done a lot of writing, both high school, college, like, you think you've done writing until you've done doctoral writing. And it's a lot. Like, with a 2-class load, you might be writing 40 pages in a week, and that might be a light week. You are committing yourself to Microsoft Word. And I think about all the stuff that I wrote, the stuff that got rejected, the edits that I made. There's nothing really that prepares you for it, right? Master's writing, even though it's graduate level, does not prepare you in the same way. When you're doing a master's thesis or any sort of master's writing, case studies and problem solving, doctoral writing, you are filling in gaps in the research matrix. You are trying to create something original that's going to expand the knowledge base. It's just a very different technical style of writing that really makes you have to reassess every piece of writing you've done in the past. You're making a shift, right? It's a fundamental shift. I was a very project-based writer. I was a journalist, did some journalistic writing in the past. I told stories. You're not telling a story when you are doing doctoral research. You are guiding somebody on a journey of learning, right? You are taking them from point A, assuming they know zero about the topic, and by the end of it, you're not making them an expert. You are making it so that they would be able to understand and have a conversation with it. That is what the research is supposed to do. It's to fill in those gaps and make people knowledgeable of something. I would say be ready to have some bumps. If you are transitioning to doctoral writing, even as somebody who is a scholar and a practitioner, it is going to be different. The amount, the volume, the precision, all of it is not to be taken lightly, and if you commit to it, you're going to be just fine. This one was a little bit jarring, and it was the lack of representation. Because outside the classroom, there really wasn't a whole lot, right? All your professors had their terminal degrees, and it's a little different than your cohort because you're working together in real time. So you don't really factor in as each other's representation. In my experience, there really wasn't anybody in the career centers, the writing centers, the places that really mattered, where there was doctoral representation. People who in real time could understand what you were going through. And it did make things more difficult as things got on. Like, I couldn't use the writing center because nobody in there had a doctorate or had worked on anything of that scale themselves. The career center, I've got great relationships there by way of one person who is a friend who I talked to today, but no one in the career center has a doctoral degree. You reach out to people, you've got people in administration that have them, but they're generally accessible. The core resources for students and doctoral students, they're students at the university. The support system really wasn't there for them. And your professors, they don't really work as that because they have other classes, they've got a job, right? In terms of pure support, that really didn't exist for me when I was at Drexel. And talking to other students, not just at Drexel but in other areas, that lack of representation, especially as you get into the latter parts of year 2 and 3 and you're trying to get things done, it's impactful, right? It's impactful because you are trying to scrape for resources that just aren't there, and you kind of have to create some of your own stuff out of thin air. Outside of academia, it's more or less unseen to encounter people with doctorates, and this is field specific, but really outside of the medical fields or academia, um, not a whole lot. And combining those fields along with everybody else, you're talking about 2% of the U.S. population has a doctoral degree. You're basically drifting in the Pacific Ocean, solo operating a boat. And you have to intentionally find other people who have done it. And those people have to be willing to connect, share, and provide the resources too. So I think my overarching point on that is it's you find yourself in a lot of spaces where you're one of one, and it can be very uncomfortable at times. But again, that's just kind of the nature of it. It's not an easy task to do, and not everybody can do it. This one was sobering. It wasn't so much shocking, but it was more sobering, and it was how little people cared about what I was doing academically. And it was tough. Not because I expected people to roll out the red carpet. I honestly don't know what I expected. I think you, as a person, expect people to be interested or be curious about the stuff that you're doing, whether it be outside of work or in general. But when I told people, it was oftentimes mixed responses, usually leaning more towards the negative. And over time, I realized that it was something that people really couldn't understand or quantify. And I get that, because when you think about pursuing a doctoral degree, it's a lot. It is so far removed from people, especially the farther you get away from school. And if you've only done a bachelor's degree, you haven't even done a master's, it's just not on the radar, right? You've skipped 2 levels before that. The advice I have is to tell you that you've made a choice. You made a decision to go pursue this doctoral degree. And whenever you make a choice, people might not like it for whatever reason. It could be their own personal reason, could be something about you. But you made a choice, you have to own it, and it is going to be worth it on the other side. I thought it was me doing something cool, but it felt like I was unintentionally distancing myself from people. And when I look back at some of the interactions I had and how people took when I told them I was doing it, I was trying to have some legitimacy attached to me. And as I was going through a career change, I felt like that was the way to do it. I made it front and center. I may have made it too much of my presence, and I think it was off-putting to people. And I actually don't know if I would do anything different. Maybe I would mention it less. Maybe it would have made my life easier. I hate that I have to think that, but at the same time, at that particular time, that's kind of what I was feeling like I needed to do. I think it got me at least a little bit what I wanted, but now that I'm kind of in the present, there would certainly be some things that I would adjust, at least in terms of how I communicated it and maybe how I interacted with people as a result of it. But that's for you to decide on that one. There's no perfect way to do it, but yeah, people really didn't care. People didn't care as much as I thought that they would. People also didn't really understand the why, and ultimately what I was hoping to get from having it down the road. This was very prevalent on the job market during interviews. I had a lot of people who would see my doctoral degree, which was in human resources, and would want to interview me for a position that I applied to, and then be disappointed that it wasn't what they thought. So I really don't know what they were thinking that was. The questions that they asked a lot of times didn't allow me to get too deep into that, the coursework, the practical applications. But this is part of the bigger shift, right? We're seeing a shift from academia to industry with a lot of terminal degrees. And I think a lot of people in industry they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what went into it. They don't know why somebody got it. And ultimately, they don't know what this person could bring to the table because they've never seen it. You're getting a toy that looks cool on the commercial and then realizing that you've got to assemble it and you've got to wire it correctly, and then you've got to make sure that it actually functions the way that you want. A lot easier said than done. Employers they have a lot of misconceptions and this myth of being overqualified, that you're going to want too much money. That's a whole different topic. But employers, it's not as accepted as I thought it was going to be, and it actually in a lot of ways made finding a job harder. So much so that you just kind of lean into the thing that you've already been doing, which for me was going independent. So that's kind of the route that I went there. You might even get insulted. I had somebody in an interview insult my degree by telling me that essentially I wasn't as smart as it came across on paper, which was crazy to say. Like, I don't know why you would say that to anybody. And there's a good YouTube video. There's a few of them out there about how intelligence is viewed in common settings. I think we could probably look at this from a broader societal function. But if you've got something that others don't, in this case, a degree, intelligence, there's almost a collective effort to suppress it or to at least belittle it to make it feel like it's not worth as much. They've done studies on this. I can see if I can include the link of the video that I watched in there, but expect that. Expect people to either not understand or to be mildly resentful at you for trying to be better. There's so much more I could go in on this. Not understanding what goes into the coursework, right? I'm a believer that education is experience. Maybe not the first 2 years of your undergrad, but certainly if you go into graduate school, master's, and certainly a doctoral degree, that's a different type of learning and a different type of application. And somebody who is pursuing a degree like this, I believe it should count towards the experience total. Somebody is doing this by choice. Again, I don't know what people expect from academic work. I think people have this perception that academic work is strictly academic, right? You're teaching something, you're doing the research, but the application side is really where all this shines, and that's where some of the other doctoral degrees kind of go in. People project what they think that you're going to want. This is really infuriating because I was still, I guess, figuring some of it out, and I think I'm always going to be figuring it out because I've got so much time left to work. But people assume that because you've got this degree or you've got this expertise that this is the exact thing that you want. And in a lot of ways, diffusing that or pushing back on it almost makes life harder because, like, well, this makes even less sense to me and I'm going to just completely dismiss it altogether. So there is that part. The thud, and we are certainly over time. I thought I was going to get this done quick. We are not there. But the process, the thud. My program, I got mine done in 3 years. There was the initial phase where you're learning how to do research. You focus on your concentration courses, which in my case were a lot of HR classes, and then you go through your defense, right? The proposal defense and the final defense. I always like asking about the experience of other people who have completed their programs because it's such a wide, varied experience. And the takeaway that I've gotten from that is be committed to what you want to research. One, you're paying the money for it. So somebody telling you that they want you to do a different research project or a different thesis, find a new committee if you can, or at least push back, because your goal here is to contribute to the knowledge base in an original way. The phrase, the best dissertation is a done one, I've got mixed thoughts on that because I actually did enjoy my process. It was a lot of work. It was kind of fun to see what you were going to be digging through. And I wanted it to be the cornerstone of future work. I didn't just want to have a dissertation to say I had the dissertation. But I have talked to a lot of doctoral folk who have gotten that mindset. They're like, my second bit of research was much better than my first. That was just what I just didn't want that to be the marker for it. Going from the defense, the proposal defense, all the way to the final defense. It's a really self-guided process, right? So everything in the 3 years, once you get to the end of year 2, I did my proposal defense. And that's where you get clearance, thumbs up, thumbs down that says, okay, you are good to move on to start finalizing, right? Chapters 1, 2, and 3 are the proposal defense. You add in chapters 4 and 5 for your final defense. And you got to be real disciplined for that because you're really not on a schedule. For us, Once you got cleared to move on to that final stage where you are putting together your final thesis, you have 7 years to essentially get it done. And once you get it done, it's done forever. But it's just how long is it going to be to get it done? I was motivated to get it done in under that time. And I was actually on track to be done with the program in under 3 years, but a couple things happened and that didn't end up working out. But once you get to the end of it and you get to the defense, you are such an expert of your own topic that really it's just about execution. And if you can execute it, you're going to be just fine. Once it's done, though, it's very anticlimactic. And honestly, I rode that whole thing out for a year. It was new and fun and fresh for me for a year, where I would purposely let people see the doctoral credentials by my name. But it is really up to you what's next, because it does end with a little bit of a thud. You are done. You're finished. It's this long journey with a bunch of other people who may not have made it to the end, but you did. And it is up to you to decide what you really want to do next. And on that, you're going to have to probably create a lot of your own opportunities. And this for me was probably the most difficult thing, because I am not a self-promoter by nature. I didn't think that opportunities were going to be handed to me. I didn't think every door would open, but I did think that it was going to make it easier, and the opposite happened. Maybe it's the lack of representation. Maybe it's the lack of understanding. The whole process is just really frustrating, because you have this thing and it is now up to you to do something with it. It's not just you have to go apply and find work. You have to be intentional about the spaces that you're going to occupy, the places that you're going to find yourself in, and ultimately what you are going to create as a result of the research that you've done. I went through all the stages. I questioned if I wasted my time and money. Trust me, that thought vanished very quickly, because no, I did not. You are told a lot of times in your institution what this degree can get you, but you're never told exactly how to get it. And that is the difference. You are so immersed in the research that you really don't have much time for other stuff. And then when it's done, you realize how much more work there is to do to maybe get the thing specifically that you want. Again, that was my experience. Others have had it different. All right, let's close it out. Just general advice. First things first, if you want this degree, go for it, right? There is no time like the present, and it will be worth it, especially if you enjoy the thing that you're researching. Have a concept of a plan. Nobody should go into anything thinking that they need to have it all figured out. We ask kids going from high school to college what they want to be. We ask people in job interviews where they see themselves in 5 years. There's no right answer, right? There's probably some wrong answers, but there's no right answer to this. And if you're going to pursue a doctoral degree, understand that it's going to open your world in different ways, and you just need to know what you can do with it and the right steps to take towards potentially getting that. Getting the appropriate help. There are communities where people are doing the same thing, right? People are actively in research, people who have made it through the research and are on the other side. Seek writing help. I was prepared to pay somebody for professional editing services. I do think that was something ultimately didn't end up working out. I was fine, but I did that knowing that the Writing Center wasn't going to be able to help me. Your mental health matters, and we could do an entire separate episode on how to manage your time while doing this with work, but you got to take care of yourself. Take care of your mental and physical health, because you're going to be spending so much time doing one thing, you will feel like you're going insane. Network untraditionally. And this, again, is something I wish I had done a little bit better. But put yourself in different spaces where people will actually see you, where you won't feel invisible or as an outcast for doing something that's a little bit abstract. Meet people early, because they can help track your progress. You can have something to potentially look forward to down the road. I was so focused on getting it done that I neglected this part myself. And again, I say untraditionally. The way that I network now isn't purely networking. It is basically one giant social experiment. I'm going out into different spaces and I'm just meeting people. And I'm letting the personal side shine versus the professional or academic side. That has worked for me. But you're going to have to do something so that when this thing is done, you are not trying to recollect people in real time. I would recommend pressing your university or college for resources. Ask them. Ask them about different events. Ask them about who they know, who would be good to talk to. This kind of pairs along with the networking piece. If you want to teach, ask about ways to contribute back to the college after you've graduated. Anything that you feel like is going to be beneficial to you, poke around and see if your college has it. Because if you do it in the moment, it'll be a whole lot easier than doing it after the fact. Assessing your future market. So one thing with my doctoral degree is I noticed the shift of HR going more operational. Now, I never really want to do HR work. I've done it, but having an operational background, pairing it with the HR work that I've done, and having the degree on top of that really positions you in a spot where you have a full scope understanding of what organizations do. And then from there, you're using your research to assess what future needs might arise. So that is how I did it. Again, try to understand the future challenges in your industry. You can use your research to get ahead of that if you really want to. Own it. Again, you're choosing this and it will be worth it. And people are not going to understand, but that does not mean you have to diminish yourself in the moment. You are choosing to get this degree and it's going to be awesome once you have it. And then the last thing is to commit to the process. Can't really get your money back. That's not how student loans work. So if you are taking out loans, grants, whatever, to pursue this degree, you owe it to yourself to get that really ridiculously expensive piece of paper that is on the wall back there, right? I first heard the term ABD when I was in the program, and it is a scarlet letter to be. ABD stands for all but dissertation, and it's a subset of individuals who maybe got all the way through, just haven't defended. And yeah, I couldn't let that be me, right? And if you are ABD, you have every chance to still finish it, but it would be very empty for me if I got all the way to the finish line and then just decided to stop right there. So commit to the process. You getting to that point where you are in a position to defend, might as well close it out, right? So that's all I got. This was double what I thought it was going to be. So hopefully it's helpful, right? If you are considering doing this, pursuing a doctoral degree, I hope you do it if it's something you want. And I hope when you do it, you are on the other side defending in short order. Can't save the world, but as always, doing my best to not make it a worse place. Stay safe, stay sane, like, subscribe, and engage. We will see you next time. Have a good one.